Liz, welcome to the New Dawn podcast. I am do you know what, I start every single podcast saying I'm delighted, and genuinely, once more, I am delighted. It is such an honor to be able to share space with people like you who give so much, who are inspiring, who really are leading change in so many ways. And for you to take time out to have this conversation fills my bucket of interest and love. It's great.
You are a very, very, very easy person to love. You just give so much of your heart, and it's so clear. It's not easy to translate love across the medium of social media, and you do it so well. So it's my honor. I'm very, very grateful for you to be. You're here as you're a massive asset to my community.
Oh, thanks. This is mutual loving. I like it.
Big love, isn't it? If only we could hug.
I love it. So the reason I reached out to you today is because the theme that I want to explore more of at the moment and to highlight the importance of is empowerment. Specifically, the journey from helplessness to empowerment. And why that for me is so important is because it reaches into every single aspect of our lives, from the way we conduct business, the way we hold our money and attract money, the types of relationships we have, the way that we view our karma, the way that we build our homes. Every single part of it is how we show up. And my journey is a complicated one, fueled with like a hero's journey to move from helplessness to self-empowerment. And I'm still on it. Like, I'm not sure where it's going or what's going, but today I sit here with you feeling like a different woman than I was 10 years ago. And I want to talk about that and your journey with that. How does that sound?
Amazing, because I think these things are so important to share, because especially when people are new to me, and perhaps they see me on social media and they think I've got it all together. And I am a very, very, very different person and was even just 5 years ago, like 4.5 years ago. I remember the specific date that everything changed in a good way for me. And I think it's important that people know where you came from, so they don't feel this pressure to suddenly live this lifestyle of success, or whatever you want to call it, because it's not real life, and things change all the time.
I think it's a lifestyle of perfection. That's what the trap for me has been, is thinking that I have to get to somewhere and then comparing myself and reinforcing this feeling of helplessness that I'm not there yet. Can you relate to that?
Totally. And I think especially when you're an entrepreneur and you're sort of, as soon as you decide to become a business owner, something happens. It happens in jobs as well, but something happens really.
Apart from lack of sleep.
Oh, yeah, well, that too. I'm working 24/7 and all of those. Yeah. Oh my God. And you basically become a master of your destiny. And that's great in so many ways, but it's also terrifying and hard in so many ways. And so you are, even when you have success, it's very hard to stop, because you're like, what's next, and what's next, and what's next, and you often feel out of control. I would say getting comfortable with feeling out of control is probably the thing that's helped me become most resilient.
I mean, a million times yes. I don't think I have ever felt so out of my comfort zone on a daily basis, and since I've been working for myself.
Yeah.
And I was not prepared for that as a child. Like, it's a mindset, it's a way of being, it's a way of holding yourself. And apart from relationships, which are definitely confronting, there's nothing more mirroring than the relationship you have with your own business and how you show.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm just like shouting hallelujah, because that is the biggest. Lauren Tickner, a good friend of mine, she's a very successful business lady, and she said there's no better personal development than running your own business. You can't hide from your demons. They're in your face every day.
Well, the most annoying thing is obviously, as I'm a relationship coach, when I see relationships, and I've done this too, when you're in a relationship, you can blame the other person. When
Yeah.
you're in your business, you're like, there's no one else to blame.
Nope. No, there's nobody else to blame. And it's really enlightening. I mean, I didn't know I was am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. I didn't know I was a bit of a shit until I started business, to be honest with you. And it was only business that sort of allowed the shit to come to the surface for me to wipe it away. I had no idea. And
What do you mean?
it was crazy. And I think that part of my journey about 5 years ago was when I was really out of control. And I think we're talking about helplessness. I felt very helpless, very scared, and I didn't know, I didn't trust myself. And that was the worst feeling in the world, because when you don't trust yourself, you start looking outside and putting power in other people's hands. And
Yes.
those people might not be good people.
Well, normally the people who are happy to take control for you have their own interests at heart, right?
Yeah.
And that's what makes them most of the time not a good person for you to be directing your own life, right? And then you're also, in my experience, a match to narcissists, manipulators, people who it's an energetic thing. I think that it's an unconscious energetic thing, that they can feel that you're pliable,
Totally.
and can use that to their own gain. And it's almost like this unconscious dance between two people's woundings in different ways. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And now you've said that so beautifully and articulated it like that, I'm thinking back at all the people, and there are many, many people. This is not like a person or a business, there's multiple people that I was clearly resonating on that level with. They were just coming to me like swarms of flies. And I was up to here, like I couldn't see out of it, because they were the only people surrounding me. And they all had the same mindset. It came from fear, it came from lack, it came from power over instead of power with.
Yes.
And all of that stuff, just all it does is, like you said, it's like this energetic play where people are stealing energy from each other, and then I'd steal energy, and then they'd steal energy from me, and it's very icky. It's very icky.
Very key. And I've often joked that until I became aware of it, I had that sort of codependent relationship with my business.
Yes.
Like I would say to you, what do you want from me? Like, tell me what you want. I'll do anything. Just tell me.
I recognize that so much. Oh my God, Dawn, like that, I think that phrase has gone through all of anyone listening's heads multiple times. And, it still does every now and again. It still does,
Yeah.
when I'm launching something new and I'm like, where the hell am I? This is a whole new landscape. I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea what I'm doing. But what's happened over the years is that I've failed forward enough to know that the bounce back is always there. And even to this day, when I've launched a new project recently, and there are things I'm like, I don't know what to do. And as soon as I feel that I don't know what to do, instead of going down, it makes me spiral up. It makes me think, oh, this means there's a door opening for me. And it's that knowledge that only comes through failure and experiencing failure. I wish I could save everybody from failure, but I can't. You have to go through it. It's just like a rite of passage.
I don't want to save anyone from failure. What I want to, and I'm sure this is, you can relate to this too. I want to encourage the what's the word? The destigmatism of failure, right? Because actually my greatest experiences and growth have come from trying and seeing and exploring and fucking up, and then going, all right, I have a choice. I can just lick my wounds and then hide and never come out again, or I can pivot, or I can try, and the resilience that you learn and the skills that you learn from that is invaluable in every area. It translates into everything, doesn't it?
Totally. And this is the thing, we are taught from a very young age that failure is bad. You don't want to fail your exams. A big fat D or an E or an F on your school report is correlated with not performing and being bad, and it's wrong. It's deeply wrong. And obviously, without getting too conspiracy about it, it's designed to be that way. It's disempowering for a reason.
I wonder at what point that's not even going to be a sentence we have to say anymore. Like,
Uh,
for me, it is just fact that
it is.
that is set up in a way for, and this is what you were saying earlier, to outsource our authority, and outsource what success means, and outsource what desire and passion and purpose. And actually, empowerment is, no, I'm going to explore this for myself, isn't it? Is, how do I feel about this? What do I want to do with it? What is my own measure of success against how do I feel about this, rather than what you're telling me?
And I think, you know, as children, I would love to see children and young people learn this. I mean, there's different stages of development. I fully understand, you know, we've got 5 teenagers and they're, well, actually 2 are adults now, but they're naturally going to rebel. They're naturally going to rebel. That's part of their reptilian brain. They have to, so they can go out there and survive and all that stuff. But what's not been taught to them at school, and what's very hard as a parent to teach your children, is that trust in themselves. That trust in themselves and not in authority. I'm not saying there's all authority is bad. Some's very good, but a lot of the times we are taught not to even question it, which I think is extremely dangerous.
I heard Russell Brand talking about how he has a deep skepticism for all types of authority naturally within him, and I can really relate to that. Like, I guess you could say I'm rebellious by nature, but actually what I am is self-sovereign. I want to look for the ownership of my truth within me, and for you and for all of us to be connected so deeply to that we don't give away our power, right?
Oh, exactly. It's like the paradox of the one in my mind. And this is the things that I teach in Dark Matters, actually. I talk about, instead of saying thank you, or looking out at a beautiful sunset and saying, oh my goodness, thank you, God, for this glorious sunset, I like to say now, thank us, God, for this beautiful sunset, because I want to connect to everything. And the only way to do that is to internalize those things. It constantly externalizing power, even to the degree of who you thank and who you're grateful for. This state of gratitude, I don't believe, is gratitude and subjugating and begging and praying. That state is not gratitude. Gratitude is standing up in your power and saying, thank us for this amazing creation that we've got together. And as soon as you do that, you start to unravel all of the things that are problematic, like lack of communication, feeling separate, the illusions. I really believe in unity consciousness, but I also deeply believe in boundaries, because not everybody is there yet. So if you start to connect too deeply, or connect in an unhealthy way to people that are perhaps not aware of the true oneness, they'll end up draining the lifeblood out of you, which is why we're talking about going from helplessness to empowerment. That is one of the worst things.
And boundaries is a real tricky subject, and I think at the core of a lot of this, you know, we're taught that to have boundaries means that I am rejecting you and I'm pushing you away. But actually what it's saying is, I have a boundary because I want to be in this relationship with you, and this is what I'm happy with. And then if you can change it and make it mean that instead of a rejection, then that is such a much nicer way of framing it, isn't it?
Oh my goodness, absolutely. Because this is the thing, I always like to use the analogy of a body and the cells in the body. In the body, like, our body is a universe. And if you think about how much order there is, it's not okay to say we don't want authority. In the body, there's authority. It comes from the brain. It gives instruction. We need leaders. And so that's bloody important. But everything has a job, and everything knows where the line is. And a blood cell, if it had no boundary, it would explode. If a liver cell thought it was a blood cell, it would become a tumor, or there'd be problems. So we need to know who we are, but we also need to understand the unity of how we work together. And I think that's the problem, is when boundaries become blurred because people just don't know who they are. They've not had the space, Dawn, to even explore who they are, because we're not even encouraged to do that.
No, exactly. And over the last 18 months, I've been working through my own healing of PTSD from my a very, very, very toxic relationship that I had. And what I've learnt, the most primary thing out of all of these experiences for healing or for growth is, do I feel safe? And if you don't feel safe, then nothing else can be built upon that. And that goes for being visible in your business. That goes for being in a healthy relationship. It goes with even living in your own home. Do I feel safe? And then from that point, you can see the significance of having a boundary. You can see that, okay, in order for me to feel safe, I am going to say yes to this and no to this. And then I am not going to deviate unless I feel that it's a good thing in my own interest.
I love that. That's a great North Star to have. It's not about just feeling good. It's actually about feeling safe, because often people can, do things that feel good that actually break all their boundaries, because, they might be caught up in a moment. Do you feel safe? I'm going to teach my children that. That's that's amazing. Do you feel safe? Because oftentimes you can still take risks and feel safe in your heart with that person, if you know what I mean, as opposed to chasing dopamine or chasing any kind of weird addiction. I mean, I used to be addicted to relationships. Yeah, like really, really addicted. And I'd be addicted to the thrill of the chase and the thrill of the power over somebody. And I freely admit that, because I want people to know that, like, I was a pretty useless case, like, not too long ago. And it's taken me a long time, into my late 30s, early 40s, to understand what love is, what being authentic is, and actually how to have those healthy boundaries with somebody, not, be codependent, which I think a lot of us are, because we don't know any other way.
Well, that's what forms part of the helplessness. And what you're doing and what we see mirrored in our relationships is the codependence is formed part of two people who believe that they are helpless and together they are stronger, but it means that I can only survive if you're part of my life. But if you move into empowerment, then you've got two people who every single day choose to want to be together and co-create something, which then is so much more expansive and fulfilling and extraordinary, isn't it?
Oh my God, I love that. You know what? You've, again, just talking to you, I think sometimes the best thinking I do is when I'm reflecting from somebody that's on my wavelength. And I love what you've just said there is the reason why I've changed the way I pray, because before it was like, you're praying to this outside influence that may or may not grant your wishes. If you're actually co-creating, then suddenly what happens to you matters to them too. So actually you're both strong, and you're both out there living your own mission, and you choose to co-create together. That's an incredibly powerful place to start any relationship, any business, and even the way that you respect your own self. Like, I realize there's an intelligence inside my body that's way beyond my logical mind, and so I want a relationship with that. So I have to respect it, rather than every time I don't feel good or whatever, like, try and like abuse it. We abuse ourselves all the time.
Yes. I mean, there's so much to say on that. Tell me more. You mentioned earlier that you said 5 years ago you were really stupid. What did you mean?
God, I was an absolute moron. I own it. I absolutely own it. And I apologize to anyone that I dragged down with me, to be honest with you. I had no faith in myself whatsoever, and I was extremely mentally mixed up. This is not an excuse, but it is a reason. I had no idea about my own ADHD status. I was in a desperate situation. I had been very foolish, and I had left the father of my children because that was the right thing to do. But I jumped straight into another relationship, just like that, because I wanted security. Yeah. And I can say it out loud. I went because I wanted security, and the guy was much older. He was very stable. He was very nice to me. And he literally said, Liz, let me take all your problems away. and you can come and live with me and everything's going to be happy. Now, if I really truly believed in myself and was in my full power, there is no way on God's earth I would have accepted that as a healthy proposal for a relationship. But I did at the time because I wasn't in my right self. I wasn't in my right mind. And that's not to insult him. He's a very nice guy, a very kind guy, but that was also not a good place to start a relationship. Yeah. So I ended up jumping into that and then jumping out again because I realized it wasn't right very, very quickly. A few years and 3 months of marriage, actually. And then during that time, I was getting extremely desperate. At this point, I was thinking, shit, my financial security is now gone because my second husband was supporting me. I'd had all of this income and money I could have invested in here, there, and everywhere. And I had all of this, like, assets, all these assets. And then they were just pulled from underneath me. And I was like, holy shit. And it was at that point, I could have gone two ways. I could have really found out who I was, got into my power and acted with integrity, or I could have gone down the easy route of like, how can I make money quickly? Who can I take advantage of? What can I do? And I didn't actually think those thoughts in that way, like I'm articulating them now. I was just like, I don't know what to do. And what I did was I opened all of my boundaries and I exposed myself to the wrong hands. And what ended up happening was that I ended up getting into situations and businesses with multiple people, multiple deals, and everything went just wrong. Even though they were all very lucrative and they were all very high money, and I was getting, my profile was rising. Inside, I was dying. I was absolutely dying. I was out of control. I was helpless, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And it's not a surprise to know that it ended up really badly, losing almost all of the money. And we're talking multiple six figures here, and getting divorced again and in high court. You literally put everything on and having to move again. Like everything was taken apart from, thank God, my kids. Everything else, all my security on this planet was taken away. And also I didn't even have the faith in my family anymore because they thought I was a lunatic. They were like, well, sir, come, says you're right, shouldn't have really left that lovely husband of yours with those kids. They didn't. So it was just a disaster, Dawn. Everything was going wrong. Relationship, my businesses, and the way I felt about myself. I hated myself at that moment in time.
And what do you put that down to? What do you think was underpinning all of that?
I think what was underpinning it all was every bad decision I have ever made in my life is all boils down to this. And I've analysed this. And even though I knew this before, I still did it. Every single one of those, I didn't think I was good enough. I didn't think I was good enough. I didn't think I was good enough to start a business on my own. I didn't think I was good enough to find somebody who really loved me for me. I didn't think I was good enough to survive. I thought I was worthless, and it wasn't helped. Like now, I'm all about taking responsibility, but it wasn't helped by my first husband being he was very upset that I was leaving him, but he was very good at putting me down. In fact, and to the degree of this, so I had 2 9-pound babies, pregnancies, so my stomach was stretched to pieces. And these are his words. His words were to me, nobody is going to want you because you've got like all these stretch marks from the pregnancies. No one's going to want you. No one's going to want to be intimate with you. You're used up now and you're just worthless. And I believed him.
I've had very similar, not that particular, but that narrative, the stuff that gets into your head that attaches to a grain of truth that you already thought about yourself anyway, and it just expands and expands until that becomes your identity and your reality, and you can't actually imagine anything different, right? That is just you.
I can't understand. I mean, don't get me wrong, I must have given as good as I got in that situation. You can't remember the words you say to other people, but they'll remember them. But I when I left that relationship, and when I leave any relationship, and it is usually me that leaves, I always want the best for that person. One, because I feel bad, but also two, because I believe that, you know, when one door closes, another one opens. And I'm very, very happy to say that guy actually got with the girl that he's got more children with, and they're very happy and all of that. We have reconciled all of this, and I realized he was saying that from a place of hurt and rejection and all of those things. We've reconciled, and we're actually on good terms now, believe it or not. But what he didn't understand was how that then affected my next move. And my next move was, let's go, let's, I mean, I really didn't think that any man on this planet would be interested in me. That's how he made me feel. And I know it's like funny now, I'm saying it now and I sound like crazy, but there's lots and lots of people out there that are having this feeling right now. They think nobody wants them, and that is so far from the truth. What ended up happening is, after I had the bad relationship, it wasn't a bad relationship, it was a wrong relationship with this lovely older guy, I met the love of my life. The love of my life, which taught me everything I thought about me being worthless was wrong. It was a lie. It was bullshit. And it took 2 whole years of being in the relationship or skirting around with the with my partner now, Andy, to believe him. I can honestly say I wasn't able to love him until I'd been around him for 2 years, because I just, it goes really deep, that stuff, and he had to work so hard.
You know, that I've got goosebumps all over, because that really, I can really relate to that in so many ways. That I truly believed that I was worthless. Actually, as far back as I'd say about 11, I had that narrative going on in my head, and I think that's what created a match to me to that kind of relationship I was already in. So I know that that subconscious programming was already primed in some way to have a relationship with the man that I was with. And for 12 years I had that verbal, mental abuse, and I came out of that like without any, my cycle had stopped, my emotions had stopped, I was strung out, you know, being a sensitive person and not understanding the world, not trusting myself, just in hypervigilance and survival mode all of the time. And it got better, and I kind of put that healing to one side. And then I with my current partner now, it's taken 2 years actually to get to the point where I'm like, all right, I can trust this. This is good. I can feel like I'm unfurling, and it's, you know, the healing has been immense for both of us. And you know, when it's a good relationship where both of you are better people independently and together because of that connection. And it's not because I want him to be fulfilling me in some way. In fact, I came into this relationship hyper independent. You know, I was like, I'm on my own, I can do my own thing, I'm my own woman. And he was like, I'm on my own, I can do my own thing. And then slowly we're like, oh, it's actually easier if we do this together, you know. But you're right, that 2 years, I wonder if it's just, it takes time for the nervous system to learn, doesn't it? And the heart to learn and to breathe again.
Oh yeah, that really resonated. I think you're spot on. I think it took time for my nervous system, because you're learning new things. Like you've got this incredible person that's telling you that everything that you thought about yourself before was a lie, and actually, you know, you are all these new things, and that takes time to integrate. It doesn't happen overnight, and I can honestly say, you know, it was a rough 2 years. It was a really rough 2 years, and I didn't feel connected to him for those 2 years at all. There were times, obviously, but I didn't feel connected because I didn't trust him, because I didn't feel that things could change, especially at this like middle-aged time of my life. Like, why would it be different now? Like, what's going to change? I've met thousands of men in my life. Why would this guy be different? And he just totally disproved all of my crappy theories about life and men.
Isn't that amazing though? And yeah, I have so much love for you with what you've just shared. That is truly just special and to be treasured. And
Oh,
what a journey. What a journey.
it's no coincidence, Dawn, that my life and business work. I'm not saying everyone has to get into the best relationship of their life to make their business work. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is that I had to get right with myself, and Andy catalyzed a lot of that, because I had no other place to reflect it. I was in such a shithole, and the reflection can be a partner, it can be a friend, it can be a therapist, it can be a guide, it can be anything, but you need someone to reflect your higher self to you for you to step into it,
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
And it can be anybody.
It can be anybody. And that is exactly what I do in my coaching practice. Absolutely. And it's like I'm to me, there's no question that when you and I work together, if it's the right fit, that I can see what we're holding space for. And then we gently work with all the stuff that comes up that is in conflict with what you desire and what is obvious to me. You know? And when somebody, like you say, I think you only need one person to be able to hold that tender space for you to grow into, and then you can unfurl, like I was saying earlier, and bloom. And do you know what? That is honestly the most magical experience I have ever experienced myself.
Isn't that the most beautiful work to have on this planet, is to hold space for that? It's a womb. It's like you are literally holding this baby of all of the, with all the traumas and all of the things that it doesn't feel safe to even talk about or express.
Yeah.
And then just being there. And that's exactly what Andy did. He just held the space for me, and he just kept coming back. He just kept coming back, even when I was like, no, this is done, we're finished, it's over. He kept coming back, and every time he did, I got stronger. And it's weird, because even to this day, we live in the same house with each other 24/7, but we live very, very like parallel lives. And we come, actually tonight is date night, so very excited. We're going raving in the park. That's our idea of a date.
Love it.
It's an Ibiza orchestra, and we're going raving. But we live, gosh, what's the word? I don't know what the correct word for it is, but it's not, we are independent, but we're more than that. It's more than that. My life wouldn't be anything like it is now without him. But at the same time, he's given me more power than he's taken, which is the first time that's ever happened to me in my life.
I mean, though, I could use those exact words to describe the relationship I'm in right now. And funnily enough, I also feel the same way about my business. Like, I feel stronger, more confident, more able to be me, to show up in the way that I show up, because he is my greatest advocate. And I am team Ben and he's team Dawn, and I really believe him. Do you know what I mean? And it's not because he's I'm lacking something and he's filling a void or whatever. It's just a collaboration that feels really, really lovely.
Oh, I love that word, Dawn. Collaboration. That is it. That's it. That's the word. It's a collaboration. And I know Andy doesn't need me, and I don't need him, but we also need each other, which is paradoxical. we just truly enjoy each other, and I think that's perhaps why it's taken us both like a couple of years to undo all of the crap and to, you know, get the new programming in, but it's also to become friends. And you have to become friends with your business too.
Oh my, that is so true. That is so true. Instead of feeling like you're being persecuted by it.
Yeah. Your business is an entity. Your business is a baby. And I talk about this, you know, I'm breathing life into this new business at the moment that I've got with Ellie, my good friend Ellie. It's taken us 4 or 5 years of friendship to get to a point where we're working together. So not the 2 years, but, you know, a similar foundational time. And then breathing life into something takes a lot. And it's like a pregnancy, you know, it's exhausting. It's tiring, but you've got to, before it has a momentum. And that's why so many businesses fail, I think, is because everyone knows what business actually is very simple. It's supply and demand, and do you have anything of value that people want? It's as simple as that. And can you get the message out there? that's the simplicity of business. But the hard part is how do you really truly breathe life into it? And the only way I've ever been able to breathe life into business and be successful is by putting my truest, authentic self. And that means going against what people have told me. They're like, don't turn up on live videos on Facebook without your makeup on. You've got to be professional and da, da, da. You've got to use this sales copy to sell stuff. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I don't like it. I'm doing it my way. And every time I've done it my way, it's worked. So, but it takes a long time to trust yourself to get to that point. Before, I was using other people's techniques and other people's methods, and all that ended up happening was I would look back at things that I'd done and go, well, that's not me. And no wonder I didn't make any money.
Well, I really hear that that's a similar vibe to being in a relationship, you know,
Yes.
how you're showing up in your partnership. Are you saying, I'm going to be me and let's see what we can create together? Because that is so much more fulfilling than the millions of times I've shown up in relationships and gone, who do you want me to be? How do you want me to be?
Yes.
What do you need me to be? So
Yeah.
from what you said, you've been the more dominant
Yeah.
part. And I am a very strong personality, but in relationships, weirdly, I was very submissive. And so I was like, tell me what you want now, do it,
Yes.
tell me whatever you like.
Yeah.
And lost myself in that
Yes.
relationship.
Yes. Yes.
And that's been the same with business too, right?
Totally. I mean, we're constantly bombarded with how we're supposed to look. We're constantly bombarded with how we're supposed to run our relationships, and we're constantly bombarded with how we're supposed to run our businesses. You know, you've got to make this amount of sales, you've got to do high ticket, you've got to do this, this, and this, and you're like, I don't actually even know where to start. I don't actually know if any of these things suit me. And so I was told High Net Connect, which was my, sorry, I didn't mean to plug that. I just say, it just comes out. But my business of High Net Connect is two things. It's a business community, which is the one online, but it's also a brokerage. It's a behind the scenes inner circle of high net worth individuals. I was told multiple times that this lot here wouldn't like me serving this lot here, and in the beginning, I kept them very separate, and I was so scared of mixing the two. But it didn't feel right to me. It didn't feel right to me. And I'm like, well, this is insane. We're all just people. We're just at different stages of our wealth journey. What on earth? Like, why can't I be in there and in there? What? And they were like, you shouldn't be hanging out with them, and you shouldn't be like doing all that low ticket stuff, and you shouldn't be spending your time. And I was like, but I want to. I love it. And I love these people, and they give me the energy so I can go and deal with you lot out there. So, you know, it took me a while of fighting that, and I don't know why I fought that, Dawn, but I tell you what, it has brought me more success than I could have ever imagined. And it's because you got to feel it in your stomach. Am I doing something that feels aligned with me, or am I doing it because someone else says it's a good idea? And it's very, very easy to get sucked into other people's fantasies of what success looks like. For me, I want to serve all my communities. People say to me, I shouldn't do Dark Matters. What are you doing Dark Matters for? It's free. And I'm like,
explain a little bit what that is.
Oh, sorry. Yes, sorry.
No.
I feel like I'm shamelessly plugging. But
you just presume that everyone knows because I know, but
oh God, yes. Sorry. So yeah, so sorry. The other thing, High Net Connect's a business community, but Dark Matters is so important to me. It's a community where we can explore the nature of reality, and we can look at ways to empower each other and ourselves to have more mastery, I guess, over the things that are perhaps a bit more mysterious. So you're constantly bombarded with the answers and the solutions to all kind of everyday things. But I'm one of those people that I'm so curious. I'm like, yeah, but why? Why? How? And what does that mean? And how does that relate to that? And why, when this happens, you know, and I do see the world in perhaps not the way that everybody sees it. And I have to be, it's taken me about, I've been in business for about 6.5 years now. The first 2.5 years were shit, and the last 4 have been good. And I have only in the last probably 6 months to a year being able to talk about my spiritual side and my, you know, my belief in other things, because I know exactly how these things help me. They may or may not help other people, but I almost feel like it's my duty to share now. It's my duty to share. And people out there, some of people are like, why are you running that? It doesn't make you any money. Why? You could be doing this. You could be on this board of this company. I'm like, don't need to. Got all, I've got everything I need and more. So like, I never need to answer to anyone again. And it's easy for me to say this now, but I was also, Dawn, I was saying it then when I didn't have that. I was saying it before when I became, I don't know, I just, maybe like something happened. I just developed this irrational self-belief.
Oh, tell me more about that.
It's totally irrational. Well, I do think, yeah, I do think.
Really, though.
Oh, well, self-fulfilling prophecy, I think. It's kind of, it started off, I tell you what started off, and again, I'm going to name some names here. Ellie Mackay, who's one of my business partners, she and I were watching each other on social media. And it's around about the same time we kind of started. And then as I became more like, I had a breakdown in, I think it was just the beginning of 2020. Beginning of 2020, that's right, about beginning of 2020, or was it 2019? And I literally I cut everybody off, because I realized that one of the biggest problems with me is because I have this almost like in homeopathy it's called phosphoric. It means you have almost boundary-less energy field. I was hooked into so many different people. Ones I'd hooked into because I wanted their energy, and others had hooked into me. I had to cut until there was nothing left. I'd even cut Andy off, my partner. I'd cut everyone off, and I was like, I want to cut everyone off to see who's left. And that person that was left was the person that was really me. And I didn't want to listen to anyone. I didn't want to hear anyone. I didn't want to talk to anyone. And it took a sort of dark night of the soul for me to say no to everything. All the expectations that people had of me had to just go away. And then I just sat, and I remember it was winter, and I just was like, now what? I sat on my bed. I nearly told you the address of where I was living. I sat on my bed, and I was like, I literally screamed out loud to wherever, and I was like you said before, what do you want me to do? But it wasn't to a person, it wasn't to a business. I just was like, what do you want from me? Because I have screwed everything else up now. I've screwed up. What do you want me to do? And I don't know who I was addressing this to, God perhaps, or something. And I just got a very, very clear message: just serve. And I'm like, serve what? Serve what? I've got nothing to serve. I don't have any discernible talents. I certainly don't want to go back to banking, and I don't want to do any of the, I just don't want to do anything, universe. Okay, I'm having this dialogue with this thing now. We'll just call it the universe. And it was the beginning of lockdown. And I realized, what do people need? They just need connection. And that's the thing. The thing that was killing me was my disgusting toxic connections. The thing that would save me was holding space for people to create healthy connections. So for me, it was all about that one word, service, and then to be qualified with the idea of connections. And then everything changed. And then I just was like, everyone needs connections. And that's where this irrational self-belief came from, because I was like, can't go wrong with this. I cannot go wrong with this, because everybody needs it. And it came true. Everyone does need it. And I wish now, you know, I'm building more and more communities. I want everyone to build a community. I want everyone to lead a community, because I really believe the better our communication is with each other, the more strong and beautiful leaders we have, the better this world's going to be. Gosh, sorry, I felt like I was on a bit of a soapbox there, Dawn.
That sounded like you had some sort of amazing download. I loved it. I received all of it. It was great. I love a good soapbox. I mean, I don't know how I would, if I'm going to translate that into my system, my reality, I don't know how I would lead or create a community like we talked about before we came onto this podcast. But what I do know is where I've had a very similar experience where I didn't date for 2 years. I went inward. I had a very insular life, because I went, what do I want? What is it that I want to do? And I got the same message, which was be of service. If you want purpose, it starts with the other. Because by being of service to the other, you are serving you and the whole as well, and not in a martyr way, not in a codependent way, not in an attachment to outcome, because that's a massive blind spot as well for many of us, but in a genuine, okay, what do I love, what am I good at, and I'll be of service that way. And my self-belief comes in that I know that communication is key. Right, just like you said, communication in relationships. I love, right? So what are the things that we need to love? We need to be able to communicate with each other. We need to understand our feelings and emotions. We need to understand how to love ourselves, and we need to understand how to feel strong and empowered. If you can do those things, then your experience of reality within what you're creating is fundamentally different, and it's not that complicated. It's just one step at a time. And so my self-belief comes in that I know that I am creating this experience for myself, and the way that Ben and I communicate with each other is nothing short of incredible. And it changes everything. It literally changes everything. And the way that I communicate with my son is a similar way. The cat, wherever he's he's his own man. He does his own thing. He's my work in progress. But, so I can really relate to that this is a service opportunity, and that's where I feel the most fulfilled too. So when you're go on, what were you going to say?
No, I was going to say the word service. I think some people misconstrue service means giving yourself. I don't believe it means that at all. I believe the word service is an affirmation. If you do it right and you don't do it in a way that, like you said, that martyrdom, if you do it right and you really understand what service means, service is just a massive affirmation of universal law that we are one. When you serve yourself.
Yes.
And when you take, you are literally isolating yourself from your truth. And that's why we end up in such a mess.
Yes. So if you were going to offer some suggestion or guidance to somebody who was on their journey of discovering how to listen to themselves, or how to honor their truth, or even just moving out of helplessness and into feeling more empowered, where would you go with that? Where would you start?
Well, I would definitely start from the place of, if you hate yourself right now, I don't want you to think that's a bad thing. I know that sounds a bit controversial.
No.
Sometimes you've got to hate yourself, because it's that process of getting to the lowest you can get, and being out, and you've got to reflect it, and you actually almost have to say to yourself, you have to say the words of how you feel about yourself, to say, I don't want to live like this anymore. There's only two ways out of this, and the other way is not an option. I'm not going to live like this anymore. I'm going to change. And it's only then, when you're at the bottom, for me particularly, did I even think I was even I was so arrogant. I didn't think I needed to change. And so I think when you start feeling self-doubt or self-worthless, feeling worthless and all of those things, I don't want you to look at them as a bad thing. I want you to look at them as doorways. These are doorways. If I didn't have that worthlessness, I would not have opened a vortex into my success. I needed to get there. And so I'm not saying invite negative stuff, but what I'm saying is don't fear it. Don't fear anything negative. Anything negative is an opportunity for you to say no. It's an opportunity for you to open a whole vortex, not just a doorway, a vortex to a new world, and a vortex to a new you. So for me, I would say, wherever you are, whether you're at that point of real low, or even if you're coming out of it, every time something shitty happens, I want you to congratulate it, I want you to bless it, and I want you to activate that supreme divine intelligence inside you to say, that's not me. Every time you see something that's not you, it gives you the opportunity to go the other way. And that is how you refine yourself. And that is how you become more and more confident, and you get more and more strength. So you don't run away from the shitty things. You embrace them, you integrate them, and then you change. You might need to go whole 90 degrees away from them. But for me, every single time I have been successful, it has come just after something crappy has happened. And that's life.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I advocate curiosity in these moments, like you were explaining, because for me, it is the reason you feel uncomfortable about where you're at right now is because it's at cross purposes with the essence of you.
Yes.
Right? So the essence of you knows that this isn't right for you. And so if you stay curious as to why it doesn't feel right, you will find there is a path, like you say, a doorway through to the, maybe not even to another side, because that, I don't know, whatever, but just an opportunity for curiosity to go, well, if this feels like shit, if this relationship, if this person, if this job, if this experience feels like shit, what do I need to remember that this is at cross purposes to my essence?
Oh my God. That's exactly what I feel. Anything, like you said there, that you've articulated it so perfectly. The uncomfortable feelings are just because you're not in alignment. You can get in alignment. Just because you're there, it doesn't mean you can. This part of the helplessness to empowerment is it's really important. The message that I want to get through to everyone today and always is, you always have a choice. You always have a choice. There is never no choice. There is always a choice, and there's always two ways you can go. And always pick up. Always pick up.
And from the trauma work that I do, and with that really rigid thinking, because that's often what I'm working with in coaching, is if you feel that there's no choice, then what you're actually asking for is a circuit breaker, something to create that opening, a pause to create that choice. So it's not that you don't have a choice, it's just you need some support to create an opening, a circuit breaker in your loop, you know?
Yeah, and that's why other people are so important. And this is the other, this is, you know, guides like yourself. It's so important that you find people that are in a space that you can trust, that make you feel safe, and you can use your gut to decide. I mean, discernment is not one of my strong points. That's where because as I said, I was addicted to relationships. My curse was too many connections, unhealthy ones, but my blessing is the opposite, the healthy connections. So for me, I've said this many times, and I'll say it again, nobody knows where we've come from, and nobody knows where we're going, but the only thing that we're sure of is that there are others, and it's in those others you find that divinity, or whatever you want to call it, that can reflect you. And sometimes it reflects all the stuff you don't want to see, but other times it can reflect your highest self. And when you've got that, whether it's in a therapist, in a partner, in a family member, it's the most precious relationship. And I don't know who said this, but someone famous, and I never remember it, said friendship is the noblest of all relationships. And that's what I believe. And you've got to be friends with yourself. You've got to be friends with yourself.
Hallelujah. Absolutely. That is a mic drop moment in every way. I love it. And my favorite, just to end on an uncool cringy moment, because that is my vibe and I'm owning it, I'm gonna hashtag together we rise, right?
Yes,
because that's what it's all about.
It is, because I believe that's the only reason we're here, Dawn. I don't think it's a coincidence we're all here together. I think if it was supposed to be a one man or one woman journey, it would be us, one of us, with all the animals and the plants and stuff. We are here together for a reason.
Perfect. Liz, I have loved every single second of our connection today. Thank you so much for your time. And if people do want to get in contact with you, where would you say that they could reach out the best?
I wish I could say that I had a nice slick website, but that's not my style. You could just literally Google Liz Baitson, Baitson, and you'll find me everywhere. Hopefully only saying good things.
Well, on that note, thank you so much, Liz, and I hope you have a lovely, lovely week.
Thank you so much.